It was 10th of November 1990 when, for the first time, I embarked upon a city outside my home, Dhaka. As a third year student of architecture at that time, we had nothing much to do at the seminar but to listen and clap after each session of speech, where the speakers were talking on the theme Architecture of the Cities. During and after the seminar, we were taken to see majestic buildings around the Maidan and Dalhousie Square. I was amazed to see the scale and features of the buildings and did learn that the City of Joy was once named as the City of Palaces. After a decade of this tour, I got the chance to visit some of the cities in Europe and found there were many similarities between the architectural styles of those places with that of Calcutta. And I was confident to know that it was neither because of the topography nor the climate or the function. The building got these abrupt shapes due to the invasion of Persian Mughals and British East India Company. It was evident that there was no big structure in Calcutta before Job Charnock commenced his business venture with Subarna Rai Chaudhuri in 1690, and later they started trading as the East India Company. Soon after the incorporation of the company, hundreds of British started to come in, and in the first 10 years of their invasion, they built a fort beside the Hooghly River. When it was completed, 3rd William was the King of England, thus the fort named as Fort William. Calcutta saw some new style of architecture in 1710. During this period, Mughal Empire was in power, but with the demise of Emperor Aurangzeb in 1707, the strength of the empire was weakened, and it was the end of the first phase when Nawab Siraj-ud-Dowla was brutally killed by the British in association with local traitors. Following these events, a new class of rich people started to emerge from the natives, and they started to build palatial houses. The first Babu was Raja Nobo Krishna Dev, who became a close associate with Lord Clive and restructured his palace named Shubhabajar Rajbari in 1757. The style of that palatial building features Mughal and medieval Bengali temple style architecture. Some more palatial buildings were erected by the Bengali Babus in North Calcutta, but a hasty design was incorporated when Babu Jatindra Mohan Tagore restructured a house, turning that into a Scottish palace at Pathuria Ghata at the end of 19th century. He desired to please his British associates and tried to make a Highland castle in Calcutta. Not only that, he copied the style of Windsor Castle of Scotland and placed a 100-feet tall watchtower. He imported a clock from England too. It was a legend that the clock used to show the time as on the Big Ben at the Westminster Abbey of London. This was how European style of architecture invaded throughout Calcutta. The British came in Calcutta for trading, but they started to rule the country. In 1772, they declared Calcutta as their capital. Lots of British started to migrate from England as clerks who were known as writers. Thomas Lyon, a British architect, was brought to Calcutta to build few three-storied houses known as Writers' Building. These houses were similar to any other houses in England. When in 1776 the construction of these buildings were completed, it was the first high-rise building in Calcutta. It was the intention of the invaders to establish this locality as their colony. Thus, they had embedded the style of their own places into Calcutta like any other places in USA or in Australia. The attributes of the colonial architecture was largely injected into Calcutta at the end of 18th century when Richard Wellesley was appointed as the Governor General of India. In 1799, he invited Captain Charles Watt to design a residence for him. When it was completed in 1803, it was found that the neoclassical building was similar to Kettleston Hall of Derbyshire in England. Architect Walter Grenville, an architect of Victorian era, was commissioned to design 3 majestic buildings in Calcutta. His ventures started with designing a new High Court building for India. In 1872, when the High Court building was completed, it was found that the building was a copy from the Cloth Hall in Belgium. It was very interesting to know that in 1933, when the Cloth Hall was destroyed in a fire, the Belgian government collected the blueprints of Calcutta High Court to reconstruct it. Grenville had 2 more major works in Calcutta. One was the General Post Office building and the other was the Indian Museum. The headquarters of a British postal service was surprisingly designed and built with 220 feet tall dome and the Corinthian column at its front. The Indian Museum was very much similar to the British Museum. Calcutta probably was branded by Victoria Memorial the most elegant palatial building ever built in the city. It took 200 years of colonization for the British rulers to build a house, a commemoration to Queen Victoria, who died 4 years before the project was undertaken. William Emerson designed it in Indo-Saracenic revival style. The style uses a mixture of British and Mughal elements as well as Venetian, Egyptian and Islamic architectural influence. Emerson followed the style of the existing locality and was highly fond of Taj Mahal, but unfortunately he could not stick on his thought. When Victoria Memorial was completed, it was found that there are lots of similarities with that of Belfast City Hall, which was built in 1888. Calcutta has lost her dignity and identity as the capital of India in 1911. Since then, it has been growing up like an adopted child. There are no big changes in the city except expanding the neighborhood towards east. The north part of the metropolis is blocked with old and ancient high-dense dwellings. The west is blocked by the river and the southeast is the only space for its extension. When natives used to live in North Calcutta, it was known as the Black Town. The White Town was the South Calcutta where white people used to live. That South Calcutta is now called as the Mid Kolkata, and new neighborhood started to build as South Kolkata soon after the partition of the Bengal. Calcutta has changed her name from the beginning of the new millennium. It is now Kolkata, trying to establish a city of Bengali and is housing as many as 5 million people in its metropolis area of 185 square kilometers. The lifeline of the most of the colonial buildings are about to expire, and new legislation have come up from the authority to get more floor area ratio while rebuilding a structure from the old aged building. The corporation encourages restructuring their buildings. When multi-storied buildings will be made on the site of 2-3-storied buildings, Kolkata will get a different new skyline and look. The street names of British people have been replaced with local legends. The bars of British lords have been replaced with native leaders and reformers. Oktaloni monument is renamed as Shahid Minar, but how long the northern part of the city will remember the feather that the British bird had dropped 200 years ago? After the invention of steam and electricity, indoor environment is being controlled and thus the global vocabulary of architecture is amalgamated, and Kolkata is not falling behind the race as well. While cruising through the Rajarhat at the eastern part of Kolkata, I sensed something different. The low-lying waterscape that I had experienced in 1990 is now filled with modern buildings. New condominiums are being erected. Cubist forms are replacing arcaded Mughal Victorian styles. Kolkata is now experiencing world-class cutting-edge commodities in terms of new architecture that is changing the skyline. In 1990, when for the first time I experienced the Victoria Memorial with architects from abroad, a Canadian architect told me that when we had nothing, you have built these structures, you have glorious past. Yes, I still feel proud to think that as unified Indian, I also acclaim to possess the glory of these majestic structures. I would like to cite from the Richard Myers as it said, I like to believe that architecture connects the present with the past and the tangible with the intangible. Now it is the time for the citizens and legislators and of course the architects, planners and urban designers of the city of joy, the city of palaces, to think what is next and how to connect the present with their past and to establish it as another glorious city of the world.